all the things, ditch, play hooky, all that stuff. And I had this life-changing moment where, when I tried to take my own life, by the grace of God, universe, spirit, source, a friend of mine, she was able to get to me in time, and I was able to get to the hospital.
This is our space.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of FireMouth Anonymous. My name is Wendy, and I have my wonderful, beautiful co-host here, Miss Amira. Say what's up.
What's up, friends?
What's up? Before we begin, please remember to like and subscribe to our channel, por favor, so we can keep on going with these wonderful episodes. And I know you just love seeing our faces. No,
No, they do. They do. Because I said so.
But yeah, thank you for catching another episode here with us. This topic is something that I feel like I can talk about forever. And it keeps being brought to the table just a lot. So, the topic is embracing your spirituality when you've been raised in a religious household.
Oof. Yeah. Let's let that sit with everyone for a second.
Everybody take a deep breath.
Everyone take a breath.
And exhale. Oh yeah, we're going there.
Let's do it. Okay.
Go ahead. I'm like, oh my God, who wants to start this conversation? Because
I was like, girl, you're the one that brought it up, so I was like, but by all means,
I will go. So as I had mentioned, this is a topic that has come to my table very, very often in sessions where there are many people on this planet that are gifted. We all have gifts.
Yes.
A lot of us, though, have very expressive gifts and gifts that are here to help humanity and this plane of existence. And we have come to a place where people are afraid to embrace those gifts because of the religions that they grew up in. And it's causing some very big, I'm going to say like obstacles in their lives. And I feel like it's time to really sit with that on a bigger scale.
Oof.
Yeah.
100%. I feel, especially with it's because I know when we first met, we spoke about how religion played a place in our lives individually, and then just how we came to be who we are now. And I know for myself, growing up in a very staunch religious, like Catholic household, at least from my mom, my dad was he was a little bit more lax, because for the longest time he's like, if I walk into a church, I'm gonna instantly like catch on fire or like get lightning bolts. I'm like, okay. Whereas my mom, like clockwork, every Sunday she's like, get up, you need to go to Catholicism, all the things, baptize, like all that stuff. And it's interesting, growing up, I discovered that there was just so much built around like guilt and shame. At least that's how it felt for me. I don't know about anyone else's experience, and I don't want to say that everyone who is currently Catholic or has grown up in that has experienced that. Again, for myself, that was a big thing for me, and I really struggled with that. That really stifled what I feel a lot of my evolution and my growth, because I was always living from a place of fear. Like, okay, I can't do this, or I shouldn't do this. And even though from a very young age, I could sense that I had these gifts, I'm like, nope, we're just going to like shut that down. Nope, we're going to ignore that because that's seen as the devil, or like, that goes against God. And like, we just don't do that because God's the only one that has power and things of that nature. And going through some very life-altering, life-changing experiences started to make me question. And I know for myself, it was within my own questioning where the answers started to surface. And I'm like, okay, this is who I actually am, not what I've been told to believe and who I should be, but through the questioning, that's where I'm like, this is who Amira is. So that's how it started for me. What about you?
I'm so excited to hear your story. I don't know if you told me the story, I honestly don't remember it, but I feel like these moments are they are like so like cataclysmic. I don't know if that's the correct word, but
Oh,
they are
yes.
earth and reality shattering. And it is a tremendous moment in your life as a person on this journey, because it really is so liberating and so freeing to finally be able to exhale and allow yourself to be who you've always been. And like I feel like I can just talk about this topic forever, but I won't. But okay, so we're talking about like our origin kind of stories in this aspect. So I was also raised in a Catholic household where it was more my mother as well. Mm-hmm. I went to all the catechism things, jumped through all the hoops, every freaking whatever day of the week. I'd go to someone's house and there'd be like 10 kids there. Yeah. And everybody was all like, yay, Jesus. And I'm just like, I just want the cookies. Like, I don't know what a chalice is and the Mary Magdalene what. Like, no, you couldn't get me to read a Bible. The only part of the Bible that I was ever interested in was Revelations, and that scared the shit out of me. So I would like read a couple sentences and I'm like, I was terrified of Revelations. Terrified. Very interesting, honestly. I don't think we've ever spoken about that, but I would pick up a Bible and I would go straight to Revelations and I would just freak out. But I grew up going to mass. Like, it's not like my mom was like super like, you know, yay every Sunday and all that stuff. But we would go mostly every Sundays, and I don't know how my sister felt, but I felt like, you know, because mass was so freaking boring to me, so boring, and it would always be me, my sister, and my dad playing around doing stuff, and then, you know, my mom like zap zap zap. Doing, you know, never into the youth group things. And it was just not my scene. And I always felt like something was wrong with me because I wasn't so into it like everybody else. And I feel like I'm going to put this in what are these called? Quotation marks. Like, you know, these things. Like, I had my crisis of faith in my early 20s. That's when I was like, none of this is making sense to me. Like, why can't I can't just blindly accept and follow like everybody else? Like, why am I so different? And it never sat with me, nothing. And, as a kid, I didn't know I had gifts. I just felt things very deeply, but I was always called to tarot cards and the Ouija board. I know people are like, oh my God, I was never afraid. I never felt like I was going to be, you know, possessed or none of those things. I even learned how to bake my own, and me and my friends would play in class, and but I'd never be afraid of it. I was just always drawn to these things. And obviously I'd do these things in secret. I even bought my own deck of tarot cards and I'd keep it in my underwear drawer. I'd never take them out and use them, but they were there. And it felt like such a thing because in my household as well, it was the devil. And don't do that because that's the devil. So it's like, okay. Well, I don't want to be the devil, so I'm just going to, you know, keep it there. I know it's there and that's enough. But everything broke open for me. I feel like when I was having that like crisis of faith in my early 20s, when I really allowed myself to say fuck it and just allow myself to go where I felt like I was being called, which in that time was Kabbalah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. So, and I know you and I have talked about this briefly, especially when we first met, how we both grew up in, you know, that Catholic household. And I think for myself, it was very interesting. And this is something that maybe in a future episode I'll go deeper into, but overall, I would say at 15 is really when the journey started for me. And I know you've mentioned to me, like, are you ever going to share this story with people? And I'm like, well, here we is. So, because it's something where I didn't want people to think I was like cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But now, you know, as I approach my 40s, I'm like, I don't give two flying shits what anyone, I'm like, I don't care. I know what I've experienced and I know the reality of it. And that's at 15. I had tried to take my own life. I was a very troubled teen, really struggled with feeling love for myself, feeling love from the people around me, and just really, really, really troubled. I would bring alcohol to school, like all the things, ditch, play hooky, all that stuff. And I had this life-changing moment where, when I tried to take my own life, by the grace of God, universe, spirit, source, a friend of mine, she was able to get to me in time, and I was able to get to the hospital. But it's interesting, when I woke up, and I say that in quotations too, I was not in my body. I was actually looking at myself from above, and I could see all the doctors and the nurses scurrying around. And I'm like, okay, interesting. And I could see my dad and my stepmom in the other room, and I could see what was happening outside of the hospital. And then I could see what was happening like within the community, and then on like this global level. And I just thought, this is so interesting. And you would think that would sound overwhelming, but it was actually, it felt very normal. I was like, oh, this is how things just are. I'm like, oh, this is great. And I remember at 15, especially as a 15-year-old girl, I'm like, cool, wherever I am right now, this is great. This is the most peaceful I've ever felt in my entire life. I'm just going to chill out here. And it was interesting. As I'm in that moment, it was voices that said, you have more to do. You need to go back. And I remember, again, as a 15-year-old girl, bargaining, negotiating, being like, so listen, you can't show your girl like this and tell me to go back to whatever the shit that is. Because no, thank you, I'll pass. And eventually I did end up going back. And I don't know if I've ever told you this part, but it's because the only thing that got me to go back was I suddenly had these flashes of me taking care of my dad.
Wow.
And it involved my dad. It's like source, universe, spirit, God, whatever was saying, you need to go back because you're part of your earthly duty in being on this plane of existence. You have this connection with your father. You're here to take care of your father for as long as he's here. And I was like, damn it, how dare you know my weak spot? Like, use that against me. So I was like, all right, fine. Yeah, I guess. Go back. And I remember waking up and life changed. And it was at 15 where I'm like, what just happened? Like, what was that? Because even before that, I don't even know if I've even shared this with you, I would have moments where I would hear angelic voices, and then there'd be moments where I would be so paralyzed where I couldn't move from the bed, and I would hear these voices telling me, like, you're worth nothing, you should go and do this and that, like, no one loves you, no one cares about you. And I remember, and even now as like a 36-year-old looking back and hearing stuff like that at the age of 12, 13, 14, before this event happened, it felt like spiritual warfare. Like my soul was being vied for. And I'm like, whoa, what is happening? And now looking back at that, I'm like, wow, it's like I'm a force to be reckoned with. And I feel like at 15, with all that happening and being given this second chance at life, so to speak, it's like God, universe, source asked me, like, you need to start, like, ask questions. Ask questions. What do you actually believe? You are here to shift that paradigm. Ask the questions. Who are you at the root of everything? So for me, that was huge. And I think I shied away from it for the longest time because it was very scary. As a 15-year-old, you're like, oh, was that a dream? Was I making that up? Maybe I was hallucinating. But, as time went on, I'm like, no. And it just started getting stronger and stronger. So, as you mentioned, in your 20s, that's when it really clicked for you. I don't think it was until I hit probably my mid-20s where I'm like, okay, what I experienced 10 plus years ago, that was real. That was not some hallucination. That was not a dream. Like that, I was taken to this other plane of existence, this other dimension. I was given the chance to see and experience that pure bliss, that peace. And I'm like, wow. So the questions, I was like, okay, so what is of man and what is of the Creator?
Mm-hmm. And how did your Catholic background, how did that support what you experienced, or did it not support it at all?
Ooh, see, and that's where the struggle came in, because when I was told, like, you need to question, and I would read the Bible again, like when you go to catechism school, like all you know is the Bible, like they're like, read the Bible. And I'm like, you know what? Some of this, it's like parables. It doesn't feel like this is something that actually happened. It's like, this is a parable. It's a lesson. And I feel like with what I experienced, and then being told what I was told going through catechism and even just being raised as a Catholic, I'm like, there's contradictions here. This isn't making 100% sense, because why am I going to deny myself of some of these things that are actually going to help me evolve when we're meant to be here to experience, to question, to grow through that questioning, to grow through those experiences. But what I was learning is, unfortunately, it comes down to suppression and oppression, and man changing the law and then interpreting it in a way that suits their needs so they can stay in power and continue to suppress and oppress. It's creating that fear so people can live from that place of fear instead of living from that place of love and truth and light.
Yeah.
And that's what fucked me up.
Yeah.
So I'm like, whoa, I've been living from a place of fear, being told, you're going to go to hell if you do this, this, and this, or, there's going to be umpteen loads of guilt and shame if you say this or do this. And I'm like, no, this is not the way. This is not the truth of the matter. This is man's law. This is not the creator's law. This is not nature's will.
We were trained to fear ourselves.
Yes. And that's the furthest thing from being one with nature, being one with the creator, God, source, spirit, whatever name you have for your beliefs, like that, the inner workings of the universe.
I think like sitting with people that are in this space, in this moment, it's very, I wish I could just shake them and be like, look, you're not betraying the Lord, like, God's not gonna come down and smite you, and like, you are born of them or whatever, whoever, and you're not gonna get in trouble. You know what I'm saying? Like, you were born with these gifts, and it's okay. It's okay to nurture them and to come out of the shadows with them, and there's no judgment, and it's not a filthy thing. You know what I'm saying? Because you're pretty much you're defining yourself as such when you believe that. That means that you're saying a part of me is dirty, a part of me should be judged, and a part of me is evil, and you just keep, restricting yourself and putting yourself in all of these boxes that were never true, like you said, for control. Because if you know your power and how magical you are, that means that you're no longer investing in being suppressed and oppressed.
And you can't be controlled. Exactly.
No. So that's why, and that's what it gets me to my heart every time somebody sits with me and talks about this. It's like, well, but what if I get possessed? Or what if, what are people going to think? And I'm just like, look, I understand because I've been there. Not so much because I felt like people were going to judge me, because I'm that type of person who's like, I don't give a fuck. Like, whatever. You're going to judge me anyways. I don't care. It was more about me accepting my gifts. Not so much that Catholicism was gonna come crashing down on me or anything like that. I was trying to make sense of something that was never meant for me to begin with. I was forced into a religious place. I had no choice. Never had a choice. It was, you're Catholic, you're baptized, you're right. And I felt like something was wrong with me because it didn't sit in my soul. So it was, something's wrong with you, Wendy, because you're not being a good little Catholic girl, and so I had to learn to just like, well, I guess I'm not a good Catholic girl, and I guess I'm going to hell, and I guess it's okay, whatever. But it took a little bit for me to get to that point of releasing myself from those restrictions and letting, my dad was very, he was more spiritual than my mom was. My mom was very much more into that, continuing the traditions and the cultures. Like, even when Benny and I were talking about where we were going to get married, she got so upset because we weren't going to do it in a church. And I'm like, that's not us. And she kept insisting and insisting. I'm like, I am not that person. Like, God is everywhere for me. He's not centrally located at Sacred Heart Church on the Boulevard. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, that is not me.
Yeah.
And I think she still tries, but it's not gonna happen. But it's very interesting for me to be able to hear people's experiences when they're sitting through this, because it's like such a conundrum for them, where they're straddling a line of, do I show up for myself and accept myself, or do I betray the church?
Right.
Like, you don't have to be one or the other. You can be both. You can honor your cultures and traditions and still be yourself, but you don't have to accept all of this. You can nitpick. You can pick, well, you know what? I never understood what is it called when you go in and you say all your sins to the priest?
Oh, confession.
That. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay. I'm like, I never understood confessions. Like, why do I need a middleman to speak to the Lord when I pray to him and he listens to me then? Like, why do I need, Father whatever to like judge me? And then my sins are just magically washed away if I say 20 Hail Marys? Like, when does that, like, if I say 50, like, do I have to come back next week? Because I said,
Let me just get a head start. Let me get a head start on all the sins I'm going to
sin a lot next week. Let me just say all the prayers.
Oh, Lord.
But you know what I mean? Like, I just, it never made sense to me. And I was just like, the only thing that ever continues to resonate with me are like the deities and the saints and the archangels and all of that stuff, but and holy water, but the rituals, the ritualistic thing that's going on, it never resonated with me. And it's like, I know it does to a lot of people, and that's totally amazing. If that works for you, it's wonderful. But there came a point in my life when I'm like, this is not working for me. And when I was going through a very difficult time in my life in 2019, I would go, this is how fucking pissed off I was at God, because I was disassociating every day, 24/7 for months. And I would go to church after work every day and cuss out God. I'd go sit in the front pew and be like, fuck you. Why are you doing this to me? I'm a good person. What is this? When is this going to stop? I'd go light a candle right in the prayer book. I'd do everything. And I'm like, I'm doing all these little steps you guys are asking me to do. Why isn't this working? And it wasn't until I returned to myself and realized that I had never fully cultivated a relationship with God on my terms.
Mm-hmm. You said the magic phrase, on your terms.
Yep.
That's where it's at.
By me turning my back on the gifts that God gave me, I was turning my back on him. I was doing a disservice to myself and to the Lord and to the universe and the Mother Earth and everything and everyone on it. I was being a disservice to myself. So you're not betraying the Lord and the church, you're betraying yourself. And I love just blowing people's minds up. It was like, I remember when I first started being more open about my gifts, and I'd take my oracle card deck to work. And I called him my cubby buddy, like my friend. He's like, Wendy, he's like, can I ask you a question? I'm like, yeah. He's like, isn't that like devil stuff? And I looked at him and I'm like, you know what? I'm like, thank you for asking me that. I'm like, it's not. I'm like, this deck is me to connecting to the angels. And the gifts that I have are sent from God. I'm like, so no, they're not. I work with the light. And he was like, oh, okay, I get it. But you see the fear in people's eyes when you say you're an energy healer or you're this or that. You can see them. So many people have passed me by and I'm like, oh, hi, would you like a reading? Terrified. Right. And it's just, that's okay. But that's not who I am and what I sit with. But it took a lot of ripping myself away from, what's the word I'm looking for? From those restrictive places, from being controlled. No matter how much I tried and yearned to fit into that box of being complicit, I can't be contained.
We're not meant to be. And again, it goes back to the oppression and suppression aspect. But it's interesting. I love that instead of getting defensive or angry, you were able to speak with that friend of yours from this place of light and love and just say like, hey, actually, I really appreciate that question. Let me explain. And the fact that he was willing to actually hold that space for you and allow you to explain like the origin of that. And, with us talking about this subject, what tends to come up, especially when, and I'd be curious, what your experience, what some of your other experiences have been as well, as I've had quite a few friends and family members that have said, like, have you, do you still believe in God? Like, you always use the word universe or source instead. And like, you don't really go to church anymore. And now you're doing like this sound stuff, and you apparently get downloads of like memories, and you get ancestral stuff that comes through. And something that I like to say, and this isn't me trying to like shove anything in people's faces, like this is, to me, the reality of the situation is there's so many prayers that say, we are of God, that we are one with the Spirit. And if we are one with the Spirit, and if you truly believe that you are of God, made of Him, and that the Spirit lives in you, why would you not be able to have the same kind of magical powers as God and the Spirit themselves? Because if you are of that entity, you are of that, and the Spirit lives in you, then you are able to tap into the Spirit, and the Spirit is what gives you those gifts. So like what Wendy was saying, it's like you're cutting off all your appendages, you're cutting off all these things that make you you by saying like, well, that's the devil's work, or that's Satanism, or that's culty, or whatever the case is. When the reality is, like, if you truly believe in the God, like the Father, the Son, the Holy Spirit, you know how much magic and power that is that you have within yourself? Mm-hmm. And if you truly believe that you are of that, like you recite in church, because I went to, at church, it's those prayers every time, in the Father, and the Son, and in the Holy Spirit, amen. Hello? That's an incantation. You are actually bringing that into yourself. So I just find it very interesting how those who poo-poo spirituality, or those who poo-poo, those of us that call ourselves the light workers, the energy healers, things of that nature, I'm like, I invite you to take a look at your own practice. And for right now, we're using Catholicism because that's what Wendy and I know best, because that's what we were raised in. And I think, well, if you think about it, isn't that interesting how in this particular religion, we eat the body of Christ, we drink the blood of Christ, the priests, the altar boys, everyone dresses in ceremonial robes, you have these incantations, you have these prayers, these hymnals, and if you think about it, if you didn't know any better, you brought an alien or or whoever who didn't know any better, you take that and then you take someone who calls themselves a witch, it kind of looks like the same thing.
Yeah.
Why is one more godly and the other something that's satanic or culty when the root of it is still the same? Like you're doing a ritual, like by saying like, I'm eating the body of Christ, I'm drinking the blood of Christ. That's where I feel some of the hypocritical aspects come into play. And I'm like, well, that's not fair. So before you go and start poo-pooing on what we're doing, that's why I say I invite you to look at what you do within like the Baptist church, Christianity, all those other things. They all take bits and pieces from different religions, but I've gone to Baptist church. So I've got like Seventh-day Adventists, Christian churches. There's so many different types of organized religions out there. And I'm like, okay, is it only because I see God hanging on a cross that it's okay? But God forbid I say I'm a witch. And yet suddenly that's bad. But in my opinion, God is a wizard. God is the number one wizard. Am I wrong? Like, God is the number one wizard. That fool spoke the world into existence. Is that not wizardry? And yet there's so much fear around people being witches and alchemists and stuff. I'm like, hello? If you read the Bible, Genesis, which is the first chapter of the Bible, says God spoke the world. And that's some wizardry shit, friends. God was the first witch, the first wizard. That's all I'm saying.
You're like, done. No, but it's true. It's true, but I think so many people would be quick to say that's blasphemous and say, yeah, blah, 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 blah. But it's taking accountability for your magic and owning it and knowing that it is made of him or whatever you want to call it, that you are not separate from it and you never were. And it was always a tool, like, again, to keep you in a certain category. Like, obviously there are people out there that use their gifts for bad, but in its essence, magic or whatever you want to call it is simply energy. And we as humans are the ones that alchemize it into whatever we're wanting to use it for. Me, I work with the light. I work with the creator. I work with Mother Earth. I work with the universe. And that to me is my Trinity. That to me, Mother Earth, the universe, and the creator. That's my Trinity. The Mother, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. It all to me, now that I have been decolonizing myself and getting back to my roots and what the truth is of my indigenous ways, I understand that we were manipulated and indoctrinated to believe that the ways of our people were satanic, but they had to use those figures in Catholicism to bring us in. To like, oh, so you believe in Mother Earth, do you? And you Connor Tonatzin and Cuatlicu? Oh, okay, well, guess what? We got the same girl, but her name is Virgen de Guadalupe. And she kind of looks like her. Oh, did you see her statue? And you're like, oh, is that the same girl? Okay, let me go in there and see what's going on. And then, se acabó la historia. That's it. And then they got you. But that's the whole reason why I have her tattooed on my arm, is because I'm still honoring the version of her that was put upon our people, the Virgen de Guadalupe, but honoring the indigenous version of her as well, which is where she was born from for my people. So it's not like I'm separating myself. I'm just honoring both. And that's, I feel like what this is all about, is honoring your humanity and your spirituality, your magic, and meshing it together and making it a beautiful story, like taking the bits and pieces that make sense to you and resonate with you, and then weaving it into your own truth. It's like, you are so amazing for going to all those different churches, because I could never. Like, for me, the thing that I would always see when I was little, I'm like, I want to go to a Baptist church because they're up and dancing and singing and woo woo. It was a party. Because I was so used to just sitting, kneeling, and standing and the same damn song every day, and Lamb of God, you take away. Like,
that's a staple. That's a staple. That's a staple.
Right?
If you know, you know.
And every freaking mass, anywhere you go, it's the same order. And God forbid you go get the host and you didn't go to confession. You know how many times I got the communion without going to confession? A lot. Which is considered a sin. Mind you, as a healer and all this stuff, I've never eaten the body of anything in ceremony.
Well, think about it though. Like, that's the truth. They tell you, like, do you accept the body of Christ? And you say amen, you put out your hand, and I'm like,
yeah, and then you go drink the blood.
And how is that? And it's interesting how people are like, that's not satanic, that's not culty. I'm like, okay. All right, that's interesting. But that's what I mean. I think it's because it's so much of that indoctrination, the colonization around, well, no, because this is the only way. I'm like, well, says who? Says the white man who, like, killed and did everything to people and said, like, if you don't believe in this, then
you'll die.
Then you're gonna die.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. It was forced upon us, and it was that fear has resonated throughout generations, out of survival, not out of because it's the right thing. It's because you had no other choice to survive. And this was something that we talk about all the time in my classes with Path of Ish, is something that my teacher said was like, you know, your ancestors had to do their practices in hiding. They had to carry altars through caves. They had to keep it alive some way, somehow. And now you're here to be able to practice those things out in the open. And what an honor that is. So again, to like restrict yourself when something feels so right in your heart. You know what I'm saying? It's not like this is just let me just do this because it's something that your soul is asking you to do for a reason. And at this moment, it might not make sense that it's a reason bigger than what you know, which it is. Yeah. There's a reason why you're feeling uneasy about, well, I always felt called to crystals or a pendulum or sound or, whatever it is. And I'm telling you, there's so many different avenues to spirituality and your gifts. You never just have one. It always bleeds out into different things, but to connect with Mother Earth is a gift in itself, and denying that you're able, like I hug a tree and it absorbs my energy. Oh, you witch. But it's true. I'm like, this tree is alive.
Yeah.
This tree is it is an extension of me because it was made of the creator, just like me. It has its own magic. It does its own things. Like, why wouldn't I go hug a friend?
I love that. Yes. I'm going to hug my homie over there.
Yeah. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, when did that become something to fear? And I think that's what, when you start going into this journey of really sitting with why you are fearful of yourself, you're going to start uncovering that a lot of these rules and regulations were made to suppress you and oppress you. And that is, like, again, a tough pill to swallow, because it's like you've wakened up. I'm going to say it like this. Like when the Da Vinci Code came out, that movie, I had told my mom, I'm like, Mom, why would it be so bad if Jesus was married and if Jesus had kids? Right. And she's like, we had a big old discussion about it. She's like, well, that would mean that everything the Bible says and everything the Catholic Church said is wrong. And what would that do to the people? And I'm like, but Jesus was human. Like, I'm sure he had like sexual urges, like, that I know that people are, that's blasphemous, but come on, like, he was a human being. Like, so what? It doesn't take away from who he was in his essence. It doesn't mean that he wasn't the son of God. You know what I mean? Like, he had other things going on in his life besides just being a sacrifice or being a martyr. He was still a person, So, like, what makes it so wrong? But what clicked for me is she said that would mean that everything the church taught us was wrong. Mm-hmm. And so what does that mean? My whole life was a lie.
And people would lose their shit. And that is scary. It's that breaking of the belief that someone has had so deeply ingrained since they came out of the womb that would break people.
Yeah.
That would break people.
Well, people's entire identity is sometimes based in just religion. 100%. Like, who are you outside of the church?
That is my mother. That is my mother.
It's a lot of mothers, a lot of people. Yeah. And like, again, it's okay if that's who you are and that's what makes you happy and all those things. But if you're feeling drawn to something outside of that, there's a reason for it. And it doesn't mean that you have to, like, cut yourself off from everything, but there's a reason why it's not sitting with who you are. And like I said, like, my first journey outside of Catholicism was Kabbalah. Going to the Kabbalah Center and experiencing Shabbat, which was like insane for me. I remember walking out of there, like, my mind was blown. I'm like, holy shit, people are chanting and meditating, and the men are on one side and the women are on one side, and it's this beautiful engagement and everything. There's numerology, astrology, like, there's everything was integrated and based on energy. And I just remember, like, holy hell, what did I just stumble upon? This is the greatest thing. But then it started getting into, like, organized religion, right? This is the actual center. And I'm not saying, like, Kabbalah in general, but the center where everything started becoming about money. And I'm like, this is not my thing. But I still took what resonated for me, and I've woven it into what resonated with Catholicism. And I sat in Buddhist temples and, sat with the Tibetan Book of the Dead, and, like, all these different cosmologies. Yeah. And I've been able to take what resonates with my soul, because I am not just one thing. Yep. I am bits of everything. So why wouldn't it make sense to me that I would be of everything that the Lord or God or whatever wants to give me? Like, I think that's a beautiful part of this journey, is being able to build yourself up from things that you actually choose to believe in, instead of just accepting and like, okay, it doesn't make sense, but if I don't do this, my grandma's gonna be mad, you know.
Gma gonna be like yelling over here.
Yeah, and you're like, you're from Satan. You're like, no. Yeah, it's very interesting to like, I'm gonna say, like, so I sat with somebody recently, and they were their son had passed away, and they were having a difficult time accepting that that their son's energy was still around, because like, well, if that they said, if I don't want to call upon him because that means that I'd be like doing some kind of like devil work. And I'm like, your son was born of you, right? Yes. Well, are you from the devil? No. I'm like, so why would you think that calling upon him for guidance or for love or for whatever means, like, when did that shift? But it was her getting outside of her head of that was indoctrinated into her, and just knowing that if it's all love, it's all love, and it's just everything else is rooted in fear, and that's where you know that it's wrong. It's like, I think I had talked about this in a, I don't know, a live that I did. It's like that sign that I saw in Santa Clarita, that it was a billboard, all black with white lettering, fear God. I'm like, that's how you want to get people into church?
That's how some people do it. Mm-hmm.
And I could not wrap my head around that. Like, you're using fear to get people into your church. How does that work? I don't want to go in and believe that my creator is going to, like, you know, shoot a freaking lightning bolt down on me because of, you know, a sin according to who?
Well, and it's interesting you bring that up too. And I always like to refer back to the Bible for some of these things, because again, it's like, I want people to see like the similarity. I'm like, it's like, do you see this? Like, I love that you use that example, because again, if we look at Old Testament versus New Testament, Old Testament God is wrathful, angry, vengeful. You get a hair out of place and he's like, bam, like, you gone. You look at New Testament God, and he's now suddenly very forgiving. He's like loving, nurturing, graceful, tender. And I'm like, what changed? What shifted? And it's interesting because depending on who you speak to in whatever religious practice, especially when it comes to organized religions, a lot of those people who use the fear tactics around like fear God, they tend to lean more into that side of like the Old Testament God of like, well, don't you see how wrathful God was? Like, you know, he almost sacrificed Abraham, and like, he told Abraham to go kill his son at the top of the mountain. And right before he was going to do that, God's like, just kidding. I just wanted to test you to see if you actually did it and follow me. I'm like, no, like, no. And then you have the other churches where they're like, well, we lean more on the New Testament. So if you think about it, y'all are kind of picking and choosing too.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I've had a lot of people who are deeply indoctrinated into like the organized religions that say you can't pick and choose. It has to be all of it. And I'm like, well, yo ass is picking and choosing. Your church is built on just the Old Testament aspect, or your church is only built on the New Testament. So don't tell me that I can't pick and choose when you built this church on only one aspect of this book that you supposedly worship and that you feel is like your end all be all. Mm-hmm. How is that not hypocritical and contradictory and heretical? Like, again, I don't understand that. So
yeah,
that's how I shut shit down. I'm like, no, like, come at me. Trust me. I've like read enough of it, and I'm in it enough where I'm like, let's go.
Toe to toe. That's what I'm saying. Like, you, yes, you're much better person than me in that, because I can't. I'm not versed in any of that stuff, because again, it's like, and I know where that comes from. It's because it was shoved down our throat. Yeah. I'm talking about my ancestors, right? Like, I had this epiphany during class where I'm like, I remember growing up and being like so in awe of the missions, and we made dioramas of the missions. And now as an adult, I'm like, how many people went there out of fear and survival? And now I can't wait to go over there and spill some cacao on that land and be like, girl, I hear you. I feel you. I feel all the sadness of the people that walked on you because they had no other choice. But I'm here to like rebalance that. But like another story that I'm telling you, there's so many stories that come up when we talk about this, but like one of the people that sat with me for a session was like, well, you know, I feel guilty about saging my home because, you know, in church they said that if you do those kinds of things that you're calling in demons and this and that and the other. And I'm like, they do copal in church, in Catholic church.
Yes.
And copal is smoky as fuck.
That's the
and
thing
very,
in that little thing. Yep. Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, and there aren't windows.
Nope.
In the church. So if this is what the church is telling you, not to do this in your home, but meanwhile homeboys are over here slanging that thing around and like, and then they, I don't know if the church you went to do it, but they get the holy water and they're like dousing it on everybody.
That was this past Sunday.
Yeah, okay. So I'm like, if they're telling you not to do these things in your home, but then they go around and literally do this during the biggest like religious holidays, tell me where that makes sense.
That's what I mean. There's lots of contradictions and hypocrisy.
Yeah, but it took me verbalizing that to this person for like, you're right.
Yeah.
I'm like, yeah. But because I feel like that fear gets in the way of rationality and logic, that it takes somebody else to be like, just listen to what you're saying. Listen to what you're saying.
Yeah.
and then it's like it clicks.
Yeah.
But again, like if it resonates, take what resonates and leave what doesn't. And that doesn't just mean spiritually, that also means religiously and in every other way. This isn't like I've always been so used to like just black and white, but there are gray areas, but this is more about honoring you and what your heart and soul are asking you to embrace. That limiting yourself to things isn't being disgraceful or betraying God and the church. It's betraying yourself. And I'll continue to say that to everybody that has that is at that obstacle. Yeah. And I feel like this is always on the very beginning of people's journeys. And once you allow yourself to break apart from that mentality, it's like the floodgates open and you're like, holy crap. Yeah. Woo! Yeah. I've had this power all along. I've had all this magic all along. You mean, yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. It's real.
It's 100% real. Because again, it goes back to a point you and I talked about towards the beginning. It's we are one with the Creator, with Mother Nature, with Earth. So why wouldn't you be able to invoke and also hold and carry that same magic in your own way? And by denying that, you're denying your connection with Mother Earth. You're denying your connection with Creator, like with all of that. So like, how does that make sense? It doesn't. It doesn't, but because again, when you're constantly told that, indoctrinated through that, colonized around that, yeah, you start to believe like, oh, no, only the Creator, only this entity, this group, them, they, only they're the ones that are allowed to have, like, we're just these lowly beings that should just be lucky, graceful enough to have been, you know, to not have been sacrificed, and like this person gave up their life for us. I'm like, oh, okay, I hear you, and I hear you. But again, and this, what is prayer? Prayer is a form of energy work. Prayer is a form of energy work. That is an incantation. And yet if you call yourself a witch and saying like you're doing a spell, it's like, oh God, murder at the stake. And I'm like, well, here your ass is over here like getting in prayer groups, praying with like 20, 30 hundreds of people. That is your coven. That is your community. That is your village. How is that any different? Again, it's the verbiage. We've been taught to be scared of certain entities or archetypes. The archetype of a wizard, archetype of a witch, you know, archetype of an energy worker, healer, things of that nature. Because like only the one entity or deity has that. I'm like, you are part of that. You are of that. Why would you not also be able to express that and articulate that in your own gifted way? Because Wendy was saying from the very beginning, we each have our own incredible gifts and they express themselves in their own beautiful way. Like Wendy is this incredible shadow work, like a healer, and she does past life regression work as well. And she just did a session with one of my clients this past weekend, and my client was blown away. My client was like, whoa, like I've had these answers that I've been searching for years, and it's like, wow, it's all becoming clear. And my client was like, wow, with what you and Wendy do, like you're so powerful. And what Wendy and I were telling her is like, so are you. So are you. Yeah. It's time for you to start believing in that and actually owning that and tapping into that, and not continuing to stand in that narrative around, well, only so-and-so kinds of people have that power, and only this, only if you wear a robe do you have that, or only if you do this, or you're deemed as a king or queen or pharaoh, whatever. I'm like, no, Fulios, all of us. Sorry, I get really... I'll start calling everyone. I start calling everyone Fulios, and I'm like, I know it's my way of like getting... They're like, oh man, watch out. They possibly starting to call people Fulios.
Okay, we gotta end this now. No, I'm just kidding.
But seriously, it's like really what this comes down to is like, we know what it has felt like to bury our own power and to be told like, no, like you should fear that, and no, you don't have that, and like that's all made up. No, and if you even try to tap into that, that means you're tapping into dark magic, evil, and it's like, no, if anything, for me, my God, like you said, it's like the floodgates opened. Yeah. When I started again to question and really dive deeper into like, wow, for me it started from a place of music. I've always had this innate relationship with music. Sound, frequency, vibration has always been this beautiful part of me where I just kind of go into this it's like a trance, a state. And it's beautiful to see how it's gone from working as a professional touring session musician for like the last 10 plus years to now being a sound therapist and using that. And then receiving those downloads from, anything that a person's experienced, whether it's trauma or even wonderful, joyful memories, and being able to say, hey, I can see your gifts. Are you aware of them? And I've received some of the same things from clients where they're like, oh yeah, I've thought about dabbling in this, or even my esthetician, she's just like, I have crystals at home and I am interested in like astrology, but I just don't tell a lot of people about it, because anytime I do go to church and I even mention anything, people are like, that's witchy and that's satanic, and if you're going to go to church, you shouldn't do any of those things. And it's like, she's shut that part off of her. And I'm like, what is that? Everything is everything is of the creator, of Mother Nature. So how can it be dark magic, and how can it be of the devil? Like it doesn't make sense to me.
I think that fear of being judged runs very deep. Yeah. And that's a big part of why people choose to restrict themselves from being open about it, because obviously, like when people sit with us, we allow them the space to be themselves and to be like, how many times have you heard somebody say, well, I hear things and I've seen things, but you hear it all the time.
Oh, we hear it all the time.
Yeah, and you're like, oh yeah, okay, like blah, blah, blah. Like,
and then they always say to me afterwards, like, that's weird, right? Or you probably think I'm crazy, and I'm like, no. Actually, you're actually starting to get you're actually starting to tap into who you are. Yeah. Like, really? It doesn't mean I'm crazy. I'm not going into the loony bin. I'm like, no. No.
No. It just means you're returning to yourself, and that's the whole point of this is allowing yourself to embrace your own magic, and sometimes understanding that you are that powerful is gonna feel uncomfortable, because going from like nothing to like, holy shit, you mean this is real? Yeah. It's gonna take a little bit for you to integrate that reality into where you're at right now, and that alone is going to change your perception and your DNA, because now you're stripping away the fake. And you're reactivating things. And like something I did want to touch on briefly is when you continuously push away your gifts, they just get louder. And if you're here to use those gifts to help this plane of existence and everything and everyone on it, the creator and the universe and Mother Earth are not going to leave you alone. And you're going to cause so much uncomfortableness in your life that you will have no choice but to accept it. And I'm telling you this because I lived it.
Same. Oh, yeah.
I lived it. I started disassociating at a very young age because I would feel energy. I didn't know any of this, mind you. And I had to figure all of this shit out by myself. I didn't have anybody to guide me through any of it. So I would disassociate as a child. My soul would leave my body and I'm just like freaking the fuck out. That was how I understood what energy was as I got older. But that was my personal hell, was feeling so much that my soul was like, this is too much. I got to get out of here. Let me know when it's safe to be a human again. That's so when you start, and this is why it's so important to nurture your children who have gifts and that they're so open to things and not dismiss it, is because you are allowing them to be themselves and to honor who they are instead of keeping it like this. Because when you do this, all you're doing is causing anxiety. All you're doing is causing distress, diseases, uncomfortableness. And how would you think that would make a child feel? That's how I lived until I was like in my 30s, was like this, afraid of myself. That's not healthy and that's not okay. So please, I urge you to, if it's not you and it's your child, embrace that child. If it says, Mom, I hear something, I see something, there's, no, you're not just. If you don't know how to be there for your child or someone, there are people out here like us that are here and willing to teach you how to do it in a healthy way, not be dismissive just because you don't understand.
Right.
You know, there's ways to move through this and to accept your power and your children's power or anybody else. So it's just, that's, like I said, we can talk about this thing forever, but it's be aware, be gentle with yourself and know that it's a process that you're only going to be given the amount of magic that you're able to hold in your current state. You're not just going to be a freaking tarot reader extraordinaire from one day to the other. You have to cultivate a relationship with it, and it's a process. Like this lady, I said she has two tarot decks, and she hasn't even taken the package off of them. And I'm like, okay, girl, start with just taking the plastic off the box.
Baby steps, friends.
And see how you feel.
Right.
When you finally feel comfortable enough, open the box. And then sit with it. You know what I'm saying? Like, don't just raw dog yourself into it.
That's Wendy's favorite. Should be a drinking game. There should be some kind of party game. Remember? Anytime Wendy says the word raw dog, something like.
But you're only going to be given enough. Like I expressed to someone else, you're only going to get a piece of the pie, because if you try to consume the whole pie, you will blow up.
Yeah.
You'll make yourself sick. So baby step, follow what you're being guided to. And if you feel like you're doing something that's not holy or good, ask God. Ask him. Send me a sign if this is what I need to do, Lord.
Yeah.
And be open to receiving it.
Yeah, be in
Prove
prayer.
me wrong.
Be in prayer about it. Seriously.
Yeah.
And no matter what, for those of you who are listening who are part of a religion, or whether you're more spiritual, or even if you're agnostic, or even if you're atheist, whatever the case is, I just think this is such an interesting topic, because I feel there's so much overlap, and there are parallels, and there are persons, entities, establishments, parties out there that are all about wanting to create this binary and this separation and be like, no, they can't mix. And like Wendy said earlier, it's not always just black and white. There is so much gray out there, and there's so much that can be lived and experienced within the gray, and it can be so beautiful, and you don't have to be scared of it. And it's just taking those baby steps, just dipping that little pinky toe in the water and just being like, okay, I'm just curious. It's okay to ask questions. I implore you to ask questions. Ask, pray, like Wendy said. Like, ask God, be like, yo, Pops. Or however you address them, her, him, cat, dog, tree, whatever name you have for your deity entity. It's like, hey, I would really like guidance. I'm feeling called to this. Signs help me to have this deeper understanding of this.
Can I share this one story? Okay. As I told you that I would go to church every day after work and go cuss out God. And I'd be like, there was this time, and I'd sit there and I said, I asked God to send me a sign that everything was going to be okay. Not 2 minutes later, a priest walks in, sits next to me, and I said, can you please pray with me? And he prayed with me. If that isn't some fucking magic, I don't know what is. If I wasn't being held by whoever you want to call him or her, whatever, I don't know what else to say. That was the universe, the creator, and Mother Earth answering my prayers through this person. Yep. I asked and I received, and my message was to return to myself and cultivate an energy with God, aka myself, an extension of him.
Yeah. We are Christ consciousness. We are the body. We are it all. Again, we are one and the same. We are them, him, her. We're all of that. So like I said, we can definitely continue to talk about this in future episodes too. But I think this, for those of you who have tuned in and watched this replay, we just ask that you take that moment just to even process and alchemize, integrate what we talked about. Because there's a lot here. There's a lot here. And just taking little bits and pieces, whatever resonates with you, like Wendy has said from the beginning. Even just taking those bits and pieces from what we've shared and running with that, seeing where that takes you on your own journey. And just allowing yourself to approach it from this very childlike curiosity. Because as we go into adulthood, that gets shut off and it's almost like that part of us dies. And it's really going back into that place of child wonderment and bewilderment. I'm like, cool, let me go on this adventure and see where it's going to take me. To discover who I really am, what I really believe in, where I want to go with my life, what I want to do, who I can call myself. So I've loved this conversation.
Me too.
I think this has been beautiful.
Yeah. And I'd love to hear what you all think in your experiences with things that people would say are the occult, or you know, whatever gifts that you feel you had and you want to nourish or nurture, and all the beautiful things. Like we all learn from each other, and so it would be an honor to witness you all on your paths and where you're currently at in your life and where you feel like you want to go. And leave us a comments, like, subscribe, and let us know if there's anything else you'd like for us to touch on. Because it truly is a pleasure to be able to have these conversations and to have you all listen to us and to witness us and the things that we've lived through in order to be able to tell these stories.
100%. So
we've been through some shit.
Yes, we have. As we know, you all probably have as well. And we're here to hold that space and witness you all. And we want to hear from you. We want to hear from you. Please share like some of with what Wendy was saying. Any of those gifts that you feel have been wanting to come through, and even any future topics that you'd like us to talk about, whether it's within this same vein or even something completely different. But we love and appreciate all of you who take the time to listen and are open to some of these different perspectives and these shifts that we bring to the story. So we love you all, and find us on the Gram at FireMouth Anon as well. And you can, if you're that person that likes to listen while you're driving, going on road trips, whatever the case is, find us on iHeartRadio, on Apple, on Spotify, all the things. And until next time, friends.
Yeah, may the Lord be with you.
Oh my God.
And peace. What does it say? What do we say? Peace. What is it?
May the Lord be with you. Peace be with you. That was that's perfect. We're just, all right, we're done. We're cut off there. That was like perfect.
Bye.
We love you guys.